on For the Record.
We saw an execution.
A Madison police officer shot and killed a man Wednesday.
This is an open and active homicide investigation right now.
What we know about the incident and where the investigation goes from here.
Now we will update folks as we can, consistent with ensuring the investigation is conducted with integrity.
That investigation continuing without any body camera footage. The push now from city leaders to get the devices. Is that something that you would like to see the council kind of commit to after this incident this week?
Yeah, I think we're all committed to it.
And we're looking at community reaction and response. That's all coming up on For the Record.
Tough questions, real answers. Wisconsin's political conversations start here. This is For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Ellie La Liberté. We begin this week after a Madison police officer shot and killed a man on Madison's Near East Side Wednesday. We have video of the incident sent to us by a witness. I do want to warn you, it is hard to watch. Now, you can find that entire video on channel3000.com. Now, the shooting happened Wednesday at the intersection of Willie and Baldwin Street before 2 p.m. We also learned the man who died was 38-year-old Corey Ruiz. His family spoke out for the first time Friday, along with nationally renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump.
My son was an exceptional guy. He was my love. He loved his daughter. He loved his family. He did not deserve to be taken out like that. They took my baby from me. I never thought I would have to bury my baby before you buried me. And I would never.
Madison, the whole world is watching. And until you do right by this baby and this family, that's right, the blood is on the hands of Madison, Wisconsin for the life of Corey Ruiz. And we're going to continue to fight to get justice for Corey.
Madison Police Chief John Patterson gave us a timeline of what police say led up to the shooting. According to police, at 1 p.m., there were reports of Ruiz allegedly checking cars. Police responded and Ruiz fled on a bicycle. At 1:30, police say 4 officers connected with Ruiz at the intersection of Willie and Baldwin Streets. Then a struggle ensued. Police say Ruiz had a knife and injured an officer. We also know a second officer was injured, but it remains unclear how. Police then say a taser was used, but according to the chief, it was ineffective. Then the shots were fired. Police say the officer who fired the shots was the one injured by the knife. All 4 officers have been placed on administrative leave.
This is an open and active homicide investigation right now. In accordance with state statute, long-standing practice, the Madison Police Department has called for a thorough and independent criminal investigation into yesterday's shooting.
In the aftermath of the shooting, there has been an outcry from the community. You can see here in this video a vigil held at the intersection where the shooting happened. It's not the first deadly officer-involved shooting in the area. In 2015, Tony Robinson was shot and killed by a Madison police officer. This week, people have been lighting candles, writing in chalk, and holding moments of silence. Vigil organizers say they could have never imagined this would happen to the 38-year-old father of 2. Jasmine Brown says she went to La Follette High School and Whitehorse Middle School with Ruiz. She says he faced a lot of challenges throughout life, including periods of homelessness and mental health struggles. Court records show Ruiz had about 40 convictions, mostly misdemeanors. The records also show 12 felony convictions, including taking a vehicle without consent, strangulation and suffocation, and battery or threat to a judge, prosecutor, or law enforcement officer.
I just want people to remember during this that he's a human. I mean, people are so quick during Tony Robinson and George Floyd to dehumanize them, to criminalize them, and that is not fair.
Ahead of the vigil, Madison officials held a news conference to address the shooting. During the event, Police Chief John Patterson got interrupted when a protester came up to the microphone. You could also hear protesters calling for the officer who fired the shots to be arrested.
You understand me? You won't be able to talk today because I'm going to keep talking because I was born to talk my talk and walk my walk too. I told these young people back here on our way here that we have the power.
We also heard from the mayor, the Common Council president, and a head pastor at Mount Zion Baptist Church. Each called for transparency as the investigation moves forward. Chief Patterson says the Madison Police Department is cooperating with the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation. The DOJ taking over the investigation in an officer-involved shooting wasn't always the case, only becoming protocol within the past 15 years. One UW-Madison law professor says the protocol investigators follow in a typical investigation is subject to change when it comes to police officers. The professor says sometimes officers aren't sequestered from one another, meaning they can speak to each other in the days leading up to their interviews.
Would not be out of ordinary if, for example, they gave a couple of days before they interview the officers who were involved in the shooting here, which is not what you do in a regular criminal investigation. You immediately ask questions.
Our Maggie Degnan took questions about the investigation directly to the Attorney General.
I want to jump right in here and ask, have the officers involved been interviewed yet?
So I can speak generally to the process. So when there's an officer-involved death under Wisconsin state law, an outside agency needs to be brought in to conduct the investigation. Our Division of Criminal Investigation at the Department of Justice is often the agency that is brought in to do that. I'm really proud of the work that our investigators do to conduct these investigations in a way that is full and thorough. And at the end of the investigative process, that information is then turned over to a DA who makes a charging decision. If the DA brings charges, then the case goes through the criminal process. If the DA doesn't, then we make information from the case available to the public so you can see what happened during the investigation. But because it's an ongoing matter, there's limited information we'll be providing as we move forward. But it's important for people to understand that at the end of this process, investigative records are made available to the public, and that we will update folks as we can, consistent with ensuring the investigation is conducted with integrity.
Now, I spoke with a legal expert who said the DCI can choose to take steps that aren't typical in a regular homicide investigation. In a regular case, the suspect would be arrested and immediately questioned. Is that not the case for a DCI homicide investigation in which an officer is involved?
Yeah, I would sort of put it differently, I guess, than that was put. So when we conduct our investigations of any kind, our goal is to ensure that we are gathering as complete, full, and objective a view of the facts as possible. And what investigative strategies are used in a particular case may very well depend on the circumstance of the case.
You mentioned keeping the public informed throughout this investigation. Will the DOJ make it clear to the public what choices were made in this investigation that are not typical in a normal homicide investigation?
Yeah, again, I want to be clear. I don't, we approach investigations with the goal of getting complete and full information, regardless of what type of case is being investigated. Again, with the goal of turning a case over to the DA with as much information as possible for the DA to make a charging decision. And so, again, at the end of the process, at the end of our process, if the DA subsequently brings criminal charges, then the case is litigated through the criminal process. And if the case does not result in charges, we make the records from the case available to the public. And so it's transparent as to how the investigation was conducted and what decisions were made as the case proceeded.
There's a Wisconsin statute that gives an officer an option to request a representative be present during an interrogation. Why should an officer who may have committed a homicide be treated differently than a typical suspect?
Well, again, the approach that we take in an investigation is based on the facts and the circumstance of a case. And so how we approach something depends on what we think is going to lead to getting the most information possible for the investigation. Obviously, state law is what state law is, and that's a decision that's made by our lawmakers, and our responsibility is to ensure that those laws are enforced. And so the decisions that you make about a particular case are going to depend on what you think may help you gather as full and complete a picture as possible.
community leaders have been reacting. Governor Tony Evers is demanding transparency and accountability in the ongoing investigation, writing, quote, "We will continue to keep the loved ones and family of the individual who was killed in our hearts and prayers. His life mattered." As folks exercise their First Amendment rights tonight and in the days ahead, we urge them to do so respectfully and peacefully. Dane County Executive Melissa Agard writing, quote, "Every loss of life demands reflection, accountability, and a renewed commitment to preventing violence in all its forms." We have more of these statements on channel3000.com. And stay with us next on For the Record, why investigators won't have body camera footage of the shooting. That's when we're back.
Welcome back to For the Record.
Thanks for staying with us. We're continuing to follow the deadly officer-involved shooting in Madison. This is being treated as an active homicide investigation. But any investigation will happen without body camera footage. That's because the Madison Police Department doesn't have them. The devices, however, aren't a new idea in Madison. They've been proposed several times over the past decade, including as recently as last year. This week, I asked city leaders if this incident has renewed calls for the devices.
My executive budget is not public yet, but I can tell you that when it becomes public, it will include a body-worn camera program for the city of Madison.
But will that measure have the support of the Common Council? Well, I spoke with Council President Sabrina Madison earlier. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Just to kind of contextualize this body camera issue that Madison has had for a very long time now, I want to just start by asking why the Madison Police Department does not have any body cameras.
Yeah, so I joined the Madison Common Council back in the fall 2022, but previous to my joining the Common Council, there were a lot of community discussions about body-worn cameras. And overwhelmingly, it looks like the Common Council followed what the community was asking for, and the community was not in support of body-worn cameras for some number of years.
So we heard Madison's mayor speak at a press conference this week, and she said that there would be funding for these cameras included in her executive budget. You at that press conference said that there seems like there would be council-wide support for these body cameras. What conversations have you had with other council members about passing this kind of funding?
Yeah, the reason I feel confident that this will happen is because in our November 2025 budget discussions and planning for 2026, there was a resolution by just a couple alders to defund the Office of the Independent Monitor, to take that $400,000+ and give it to the police department for body-worn cameras. But the chief at the time, of course, he was not expecting that resolution, and he at the time did not have a budget, for body-worn cameras because we were not there yet. But in that discussion, the council decided not to accept that resolution, to vote it down, so that resolution did not pass. But we also had a conversation during that meeting with the police chief to talk about, his understanding of what it might cost to implement body-worn cameras. We also talked about the expectation is that going into 2026 for 2027, that we would like for him to submit a budget for those cameras. And he submitted a capital budget request where he will implement them over 3 years. And based on last year's conversations and continued conversations, I'm confident that we'll see likely unanimous support for that implementation.
I also want to talk a little bit about something else we heard from the mayor at this press conference, because she said part of the barrier to getting these cameras was needing policies in place beforehand. Now, obviously, we would need those policies if we were to get new cameras. What would you like to see for this policy development to be able to implement these devices?
Yeah, I guess I would want the outcome of any policy development to definitely take into consideration what kind of use the camera footage can be used for. I just do not want to see footage ending up on like a YouTube channel where folks are making millions of dollars. I just really would not like to see that happen. And I guess I would also like to see that if something happens and the public wants valid access to those records, there is not some huge cost for that, and there's not some huge delays.
Obviously, we're having this conversation today because of the events in Madison this week. Now, I've seen comments on social media, people asking why there weren't body-worn cameras. And there's kind of outrage and upset over that. What's your response as a city leader?
Yeah, I think, again, we don't have them because the council at the time followed what the community was asking for, and what the community was asking for was more investment in, I'll just say, human services related programming or offerings, for example, or services. And the community was overwhelmingly, at least from when you go back and look at discussions between community groups, community members, and the Common Council, there was not the want to implement body-worn cameras over investments in human service related services.
So we were talking about rolling out these cameras over the next 3 years. Is that something that you would like to see the council kind of commit to after this incident this week?
Yeah, I think we're all committed to it. Again, this incident is tragic and horrifying, and the reason I feel confident in saying that they will roll out is not because of the incident, but because of the conversation that we had in fall of 2025. And we asked the chief to submit those budgets to us with the understanding that we were preparing to take this on. Now, I think there is now just a sense of urgency for us to ensure we get it done.
As a city leader, this community obviously very upset right now. We're seeing protests, folks at this vigil at 24/7, it feels like. What's your message to community members who are really hurting right now?
So to take care of each other, but continue to push in every direction to demand change and accountability.
Thank you for the time. And stick with us. Next on For the Record, why Wisconsin Democrats are suing the state election commission. Thanks for staying with us. Wisconsin Democrats are suing the state elections commission in an effort to allow absentee ballot revotes. Last week, the Wisconsin Elections Commission changed its guidance, saying clerks should no longer allow voters to, quote, spoil or change their ballots after submission. This means that if someone votes absentee in a primary for a candidate who drops out, the voter cannot change their vote. So if voters who have returned their ballots in favor of Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, they cannot change their vote. And a day after getting back into the race, David Crowley sat down for a one-on-one interview. Here's our conversation. So let's start off with, obviously, a whirlwind of a week is the term I've heard you use.
Yeah.
Now, you exited this race. At that time, you said it was clear that you would not be the Democratic nominee. What changed now that you're back in?
Well, ever since that day, I think a lot has changed. I think we have seen new information come every single day since I've dropped out. But what changed is that the lieutenant governor dropped out. And so we've gotten more information related to her campaign, our campaign. And at the end of the day, I made this decision because it's about people. This isn't about me. It's not about any of the other candidates. This is about making sure that Democrats can have the right nominee that can defeat Tom Tiffany this upcoming November.
Now, voting is already underway with absentee ballots out. Is it a risk to get back into the race right now?
Well, I would say no. I think that, one, I was already in this race, and I know that there were people who had voted for me in this race already, and so I'm still on this ballot. And so this is a great opportunity for us to continue to energize our base.
I want to talk a little bit about those resources here in just a second, but I want to start with the governor's endorsement, because that's not something we typically see from him in a primary like this. What did your conversation with him look like?
Well, I'm not going to go deep into our conversation, but he wanted to endorse me. He believes that I am the best candidate in his race. And so to have his endorsement, honestly, is an honor because he has been the steady, calm strength we have needed here in the state of Wisconsin. He defeated Scott Walker. And so I truly believe that his particular endorsement is his confidence in my judgment, in my leadership, in my experience, in being able to build the necessary coalition in order to defeat Tom Tiffany.
I want to note here that he did bypass his own lieutenant governor, former lieutenant governor, and a former top aide of his to give you this endorsement. Did that surprise you?
You would have to talk to the governor about that. I know that he has worked with all of us in this race for many years in different capacities, so you would have to talk to the governor on why he made that decision.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the criticism that have come from this as well. The Madison Democratic Socialists of America argued your endorsement by the governor is the Democratic establishment trying to influence this primary. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm not a hand-picked candidate, right? And so when I think about, the state of Wisconsin in general, the black guy from the city of Milwaukee isn't necessarily looked at as the establishment here in the state of Wisconsin. I'm focused on making sure that we can win this race in November.
What would you say to folks who say that this is a backroom deal by top leaders in the party?
I would say that that's nonsense. I've never been a part of a backroom deal. I made this decision to get into this race because it was important to the people of Wisconsin.
We're sitting here today about 24 hours since you officially relaunched your campaign. What does support in the last 24 hours looked like?
We've received a lot of support. In a couple of hours, we actually fundraised about $125,000. But we have to continue that momentum. Getting the governor's endorsement is great, but it doesn't mean I should not be doing the work. I have to do the hard work to earn the support of every voter in Wisconsin.
Campaign finance reports show you behind a couple of other candidates here. Are you going to be able to catch up? And if so, what is that going to look like?
Well, we had $315,000 cash on hand. And so this is really about continuing to move forward. We had actually more than some of the candidates that are currently in this race as well. But with the resurgence of energy and excitement around this campaign since we've re-entered, I know that we'll be able to continue those fundraising efforts.
I want to talk a little bit about the other kind of shakeup we saw in the race this week, which was Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez getting out of this race. Now, you had previously endorsed her. What did any conversations between the two of you look like as this news broke about some errors in her finance reports?
Yeah, you know, the Lieutenant Governor called me the day before, that Sunday before everything actually was announced. And, you know, we had a hard conversation, but I told her I was going to continue to support her, continue to be behind her. But as the days went on, the week went on, things clearly it wasn't the situation that the Lieutenant Governor was looking for. And so she dropped out of that race. And when she made that decision, that's when I had to make mine.
Were you aware of any errors at the time you endorsed her?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I had no clue what was going on with her campaign finance report.
That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
That was Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley with me last week, just after he re-entered the race. And stay with us. For the Record, we'll be right back after this. And before you go, after this week's deadly officer-involved shooting, we want to share some community resources. You can call or text 988 for urgent mental health support. Text HOME or HOLA to 741-741 to connect with a volunteer crisis counselor. The Dane County Crisis Hotline is 608-280-2609. We're also expecting city leaders to hold a community listening session. We'll bring you details on that event as they become available. That'll do it for us this week. A reminder, you can watch full episodes of the show as well as expanded interviews on our website at channel3000.com. For the Record, I'm Ellie La Liberte.
This has been For the Record.